while you're stretching, let me give you 3 thoughts about the copyright thing. That was a very good presentation, by the way. Very good. You know what? That stuff is painful to go through if you're a creative person, but it's incredibly important. I'm telling you, it is incredibly important. My thought as a producer on 3 of those areas that you might be interested in is, number 1, I've actually had pastors tell me that copyright means your right to copy. I had one pastor that had back in the days of audio VHS cassettes, actually had a duping station in the back of his church where he could take movies like Jesus of Nazareth or The Passion of the Christ, and he was cranking out VHS copies to give to all of his friends. Your right to copy. Pastors and IP. I don't know if the Adventists have a conference-wide or denominational-wide policy, but I'll tell you this. I tilt, this is not a legal analysis, this is me as a producer. I tilt toward letting the pastor have his stuff. No, honestly, you can nitpick it to death. He was on the church salary when he wrote it. He was employed by the church when he wrote it. You can nitpick it to death. But the truth is, if the pastor leaves, what are you going to do with it? That's going to do the church absolutely no good to have a library of the former pastor's sermons. Nobody wants it. So give it to the poor guy. Maybe he can go out and build a career with it. Let him have it rewritten into books or whatever he wants to do. My feeling is I kind of tilt toward giving it to the guy. And he did create the stuff, no matter whose salary he was on at the time. So generally speaking, I just have never found a single instance where the church benefited from owning it after the pastor left. Just not going to do it because they got a new pastor. They want to promote his stuff, not the old guy's stuff. So I tend to tilt toward letting the pastor have the IP and letting him own his stuff. And let me say fair use. All 4 of those, thoughts that went into deciding its fair use are the most vague lines of the history of English grammar, which means you're going to get taken to the cleaners. My feeling is avoid it. Just pretend like there is no such thing as fair use. As a producer, I spent 30 or 40 years producing stuff, and I want to make sure I have the rights to do it. It's just not worth it. Trust me, fair use issues always happen after the project's been produced. That's a little late to find out you really don't have the right to do that. So don't, and I know too many producers who just assume, I can use that movie clip as a fair use. Fair use is such a vague thing. There's no attorney in America who can give you an exact definition of what fair use actually means. The theory is it's allowing people in educational settings or nonprofit settings to use a piece of a work. But there's always a way you can get nailed to the wall. So just be very careful when it comes to fair use. I think that's just a good rule to go by. But that's great stuff. Legalist, man, let me tell you, get your legal ducks in order. I have an attorney in LA that I call regularly because I just never I don't want to end up in jail over my latest project. Okay, let me give you a handful of stuff that I think is really important that you need to know. That this is my last session with you, so I want to give you some things that have been really important to me in the last year or so that I think should be really important to you, okay? Number 1, your church website is for visitors, period. Your church website is not for church members, it's not for the community, it's not for your friends, it's for visitors only. Most church websites have everything on there that anybody could need except visitors. All your website needs to do is tell me where your church is, what time the service is, what you stand for, how do I get there. That's all. Now, there's no question you can put other stuff down a little deeper if you want to, but on the very surface, remember, people give you you have an average of about 4 seconds to grab somebody's attention on the web. So the easy stuff to get to should be really designed for visitors. I can show you, there are numerous websites that churches have out there. The homepage is a countdown to the next service. The homepage is how to get you there. The homepage is all meant to inspire you. Now here's the thing. In my experience, virtually 100% of new visitors will check you out online before they come and visit. So why is your website so lame? Let me tell you something. If that website is the reason people decide to visit your church, it ought to be the best thing that church does. It ought to be the very best thing. Stop putting money into the nursery program or the missions program or whatever. Put money in your website and make it rock, because that's what's going to grow your church. People are looking at your site to find out if that's a place I want to visit. So, make it for visitors. And also, by the way, communications people, don't overwhelm people with information. I mean, as I mentioned this morning, people just shut down. I had a church, we worked with a church in North Carolina a couple years ago that had an anal retentive communication director. He was a great guy, but he was the most detailed, obsessive guy I've ever met. He literally sent out 3 email blasts a week to his church members. Then every week, he sent out a video email blast. Then every 2 weeks, he sent out a letter. And every 3 months, he sent out a 60-page catalog of all the stuff the church does. People, and I did some focus groups. They couldn't figure out why nobody was responding. I did some focus groups with people in the church. Every one of them, without fail, said, "Oh, yeah, we throw that stuff in the trash. We just hit the delete button. We don't even look at that stuff. We're being overwhelmed." And so, don't overwhelm. Remember, give people as little information as you possibly can. Somebody said one time, the definition of a great work of art is when you've taken everything away from it you possibly can. When you've cut out everything, when you've edited it all away, that's what's left. So you really want to, I mean, we live in the most distracted world, distracted culture in the history of the world. I said this morning, the average person is bombarded with about 5,000 media messages every single day. In that world, they got a lot of choices. Why should they check your email? Why should they look at your letter or your catalog or whatever it is you do? They got a lot of other choices. So sharpen the spear. Sharpen the spear and make it work. Okay, so your website is for visitors. Second thing is, I want you to know, is that the pastor's message, when it comes to communication, the pastor's message is the point of the spear for everything you communicate. Here's the single greatest problem I encounter when I consult with churches. I go in, pastor gets in the pulpit and he preaches one thing. Social media guys, they're telling a different story. The website tells a different story. The letter that goes out tells a different story. The ministry magazine or whatever they may have tells another story. In other words, they're firing their guns in all different directions. Let me tell you something. When you align with the pastor's message for that week, you start aiming all of your guns in one direction and you're going to blow a hole in the wall and you're going to make an impact in people's lives. So my job when I work with churches is getting everybody together around the table to make sure the social media person, the web person, the video person, all those people, the print people, are all telling the same story. And if you want to make the best impact, it ought to be based on what the pastor's preaching. Stop trying to compete with the pastor. Get in the flow, because that's the message everybody heard that week. So does that make sense? Make sure the pastor's message is the point of the spear for everything you do. When you start doing that, let me tell you something. Hillsong, Lakewood, Life Church, these churches that are blowing and going, everything they do is lined up with whatever Brian Houston or Craig Rochelle or Joel Osteen or those guys are preaching that week. They're lining it all up. And man, when they pull the trigger, amazing things happen. By the way, I'll tell you a funny story. Joel Osteen tweeted last about 6 months ago. He tweeted the number 9, and he's got like 2 million followers on Twitter. And the web just went crazy. Gosh, Joel tweeted 9. What does that mean? Everybody started searching the scriptures. What does 9 mean? People started throwing out all these esoteric ideas about what the Bible says about 9. What's the meaning of number 9? What does it mean? It went on for like 2 weeks until they realized the gal that helps them with social media butt dialed it. She sat down and hit 9 and it tweeted out by mistake. So just shows you the power of. I mean, people were in a tizzy about what does the Bible say about number 9? What does Pastor Joel mean? Did he have a prophecy? Did he have a revelation? Oh, give me a break. He just sat down. So the power of social media is pretty amazing. But anyway, that's incredibly important. Third thing I want you to know, the power of short video. As of last year, short video, and by that I mean 3 to 6 minute videos, are the #1 marketing tool in America. More businesses, more nonprofits, more churches, more ministries use short videos for telling their story than anything else. In fact, as of last year, short videos take up more internet bandwidth than anything except Netflix and Amazon Prime. In fact, As of about 6 months ago, for the first time in the history of the internet, viewing short films exceeded viewing porn on the web. As most of you probably know, since the inception of the internet, since Al Gore invented the internet, porn has been the most watched thing ever. Now, for the first time, and this is a good thing, short films, short videos have taken its place. Short videos are incredibly popular. One of our clients is the Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C. Anybody been yet? Tell you what, whatever it takes, go. It's an amazing, it's a $1 billion museum. It's one of these things that you're actually proud of being a Christian when you go through that thing. You know, instead of these cheesy things most Christians do, you're actually proud. You want to take your non-believing friends to go see it because it's amazing. But we did all the media for 3.5 years up to the launch of the museum, and we probably did more than 150 short videos on fundraising, donor development, awareness, marketing, membership, all kind of stuff. And I was just constantly amazed. I've traveled around the world, and people in Germany, in Africa, I've had people say, "Oh, I know you. You made those videos for the Museum of the Bible. I've seen those." You can't believe how popular they are. Here's the thing. Here's some things about short videos. 46% of people that watch them want to find out more. I mean, what does that say about evangelism? 40 says half the people that see it want to take the next step. What a powerful tool for the gospel. Also, more than 30% of your audience watching a short video is international. So your little church, your little bitty church outside New Jersey is now a global organization because you're making short videos that are getting passed around and seen by people all over the world. So now here's the thing I want you to remember about short videos. This is the most important thing. Facts, or let me put it this way. Print is about facts. Video is about emotion. Wow. That's insanely important for you to remember. Here's the deal. I get videos sent to me all the time from churches and ministries that are nothing but statistics and facts. Here's how many people we led to the Lord this year. Here's how many homeless people we fed. Here's how many people we took off the street. Here's how many people we went through our drug and rehab program. I don't care. I don't care. Facts are great. Those things are important. Put them on your website. Put them in the brochure. But when it comes to video, I want to see the story of someone's life that was transformed because of what you do. You want to tug at my heartstrings? You want a response? Better be emotional. Video is driven by emotion. Tell me that life-changing story of someone who encountered your church, your youth program, your drug outreach, whatever it is. Tell me that story. That's what I want to hear. If you can do that, you'll succeed doing videos. Very, very important. That's the single most important thing. Stop doing the fact stuff. Stop doing statistics. Give me a heartwarming story of how the gospel has changed somebody's life. That'll be the power of videos. Any question about that, by the way? Because videos, and again, look, you don't wait for your expensive camera. Don't wait for the pastor to raise the money. You got a phone in your pocket. You can make videos. Like I said this morning, there are 2 film festivals in America for movies made on iPhones. So you have no excuse. You have no excuse. Get out there, start making them, because they can be very, very, very powerful. We probably do short videos more than anything else as our company, just because they're so popular, so many people like them. There's a great ministry out there called Christian Vision. They have an app called Yes He Is. And their whole purpose is to make short videos that share the gospel. But they do it in an incredible variety of ways. Really engaging stuff. And they've set up a website designed that if you have a friend that needs to hear about the gospel, you go put their email address in there and they'll send them a video in a completely secular package. It doesn't look like it's from a Christian website or anything, but it's a very cool video, and they're pioneering some amazing things. They have offices in the US and in the UK, Egypt, Beijing, Australia. They're all over the place. And they're doing some really, really remarkable. I can't get this thing to stay. Have you got a piece of tape I can put on this thing? It stayed up this morning pretty well. Now it's fighting me. Also, by the way, this same ministry, just between us, is doing some experiments with artificial intelligence. So far, they've led 85 people to Christ through AI. A robot has led 85 people to Christ. That's some interesting stuff happening out there, isn't it? Really some interesting stuff happening out there. So, Yeah, we don't need people anymore. We'll just let the robots lead the people. If church members aren't going to get serious about sharing their faith, let the robots do it. That's what I say.
What's the name of the ministry?
Christian Vision. Google Christian Vision, and you'll find out some of the stuff they're doing. All right, number 4. Let's talk about social media for a minute. Here's my random thoughts about social media. Your church social media platform is largely a megaphone. It's, hey, we're having the Easter pageant this week. We're doing the Christmas play this week. Come to see the youth camp we're having the camp meeting, whatever. The church feeds are largely a megaphone, and they're important, but they're mostly just an announcement. The most powerful feed you have is the pastor's feed and some of your leaders' feeds. Because people like to follow people. They'll follow the church media feed just to stay up with what's going on, but they don't have a relationship with that. But here's the thing about your pastor's feed. Most of you, even if you're in a church of 75 people, the pastor just can't go out for coffee with everybody that wants to. He's a busy guy. Pastor's wife is the same way. Maybe some of the other leaders the same way. You may even be the same way. The problem is, the pastor just can't go out with anybody that calls. But through social media, he can develop a pretty powerful relationship with an amazing number of people. You know why? The single biggest reason, in my experience, the single biggest reason people follow you on social media is they want to know what your life is like. And I tell my pastor clients, I tell my pastors, look, hey, you're the pastor of a major church. People want to know what that's like. So don't post, today's the day the Lord hath made, let us rejoice and be glad in it. Tell me about your life. Tell me what you're struggling with on a weeknight preparing your message. Tell me what's going through your mind when you're about to walk out to the funeral of a church member that you've known and loved for the last 20 years. Tell me what's going through your mind when you're trying to come up with a creative way to reach young people. What are your triumphs? What are your failures? What are you struggling with? You start telling that story on social media, you'll have more followers than you know what to do with. And from my perspective, you as communication people, as communication directors, should do the same thing. Look, I'm sure your kids are doing great. I don't need to see more pictures of them. And obviously you could use Facebook and whatever you want to show family stuff, and I'm not poo-pooing that at all. But the truth is, if you want to grow your following, let them know what a communication leader does behind the scenes. Let them know an intimate look at the behind-the-scenes part of your life. And let me tell you something. Tell your pastors, and I know a lot of you guys have older pastors that don't get social media. I get it. But boy, if you could get them to dip their toe in just a little bit, it's amazing how quickly they can become addicted. And a large part of it is, don't just post and walk away. Too many pastors do that. I always tell them, look, go back and respond to people who respond to you. I had a pastor in South Carolina, never, ever responded. He was like a drive-by poster. He'd just post something and go on. I said, go back and talk to some of those people. So he went back. He went down, he said something to some lady that had responded to him. Her next response on social media was, oh my God, my pastor talks to me on social media. This is the most amazing church I've ever been to. And it blew up from there. Social media is social. Get your pastor to start some conversations. Doesn't mean he has to quit the rest of his life and just focus on that. But let me tell you a story. I've got a pastor in North Carolina who called me last summer. Said, I've listened to you tell me I should respond to people. I've never done it. I just never know desire. But he said, a couple weeks ago, he said a lady asked a couple theological questions on Facebook. He said, I thought, okay, I'll respond to her. And he went back and he answered her questions. He said, guess what? She came to church that Sunday. He said, then guess what? At the end of the message, she came forward and accepted Christ. And they said, and guess what? The next day she was killed in an automobile accident. He said, it sounds cheesy, and I don't want to over-spiritualize it, but he said, I think, what if I had never responded to her in social media? Amen. Where would she be today? So, that's I can't tell you the number of people I've seen led to the Lord, found a church, got plugged into a alcohol or drug rehab program. people's lives have been changed because of social media. So sure, we can take it as a fun little tool and have fun with it, or we can think, look, let's get serious about this. And by the way, you have no idea how much you can jack up your career as a filmmaker, a social media person, a communications director, a media person, just by you being strategic about your social media. And let me tell you some things to think about that. Number one, think about your photo on your stupid Twitter page or your Instagram. I saw a guy came to me the other day and he said, man, I want to be known as I really want to be a social media consultant, and I'm working really hard to do that. And so I looked at his Twitter feed. His photo is of a kitten. I said, what does a kitten say to me about your expertise in social media? Give me a break. You know, take that stuff seriously. And on your bio, don't say, I like long walks at the beach. All right, tell me what you do or what you want to do. Think about what are you doing? Fix me? Yeah, that'd be good. I'm getting excited here. I don't need it. I don't need that much. Sheesh. You're gonna put it over my mouth? No, I'm just gonna put it here. You tell me where that should be, and I'll put it over there, just like right there. Will that look like I got beat up?
Yeah.
For anyone videotaping this, I wasn't beat up. I'm just trying to fix this. That's not even working. This is my beard. Yeah. Don't tell me my skin's oily. I took a bath last night and this morning. No, that's good. Well, that's all right. I'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. You think that was better? Yeah, it did work this morning. All right. Now drop that down. And I'll catch it. Hello, this is do-it-yourself video. All right. Let's see if that works. Thank you, sir. By the way, can you just give a hand to the tech crew back there? These guys are amazing. Charles and team, amazing. All right. Anyway, social media. What was I talking about? Oh, yeah, your picture, your bio, all those things. Think about it. You know what? You could position yourself as who knows where God may take you in 5 years, in 10 years. You may be consulting on this stuff. You may be working with other churches. Who knows? I'm just saying, you know what? You have a chance to position yourself, but you have to take it seriously, and you have to really respond in a way. Okay? But with your pastor, have him start giving us a glimpse of what his life is like behind the scenes. It can have an amazing impact out there. It really can. And by the way, let me give you a secret for growing your list. Just you personally, this is really interesting. Follow people you respect, and every once in a while, and really follow them, check on them every once in a while, and then every once in a while, respond to something they say. If it's a good response, you'd be amazed at how many people will respond back. And when they respond back, their 500,000 followers just saw your name. It's worked with me with a number of people. I'm friends with Rick Warren, but he's got like 1.5 million Twitter followers, and I responded to him a couple times, and he's responded back, and bing, my list takes a bump. Because I guess people think, hey, if Rick responded to that dude, maybe he's pretty smart. Maybe I should follow him. So be strategic. Don't do it to be cheesy, but be strategic. Follow people you like and admire, and occasionally, you never know, if they respond back, who knows how many people you might get. It could really help. So get to have, just work it. Have a little plan. Don't just be too, and what we're finding out is most people respond between 9 a.m. and 2 p.m. Then there's a spike, particularly with Facebook, that goes up around 10 or 11 at night because we're discovering moms put their kids to bed, decide to take a last look at Facebook before they go to sleep. And so if you think about those times, plus I speak a lot internationally, so I respond. I set mine up, use Buffer to respond all kind of times, so it's important. All right, let's keep going real quick. The fifth thing I would say is publishing still matters. Print publishing still matters. If you're a pastor and you want to separate the men from the boys and the women from the girls, publishing is still an incredibly important tool. Now, traditional publishers are hard to work with. They're looking for people that have a huge following already. Most traditional publishers don't. They won't lift a finger to help you market your book. I can tell you that from experience. But there's plenty of other options. There's self-publishing. There's a new model, hybrid publishing. I've launched a label myself, a hybrid publishing company, and we're doing 3 leaders books right now. And you still You still pay, you help pay to make it happen like you do with self-publishing. However, you don't have to have 10,000 books in your garage after you're through the process. They can be printed these days as they're needed. So, and we've got brilliant writers and brilliant designers for covers and things like that, and we can help get it in bookstores if necessary. But it's a hard road, but encourage your pastor. Whether it's a series of sermons he takes and we edit that into a book, whether it's whatever, whether it's just an original story, but I think books still matter. Certainly the public doesn't read like they used to, but books really do matter for establishing your reputation. Number 6, this may be the most important thing I say all day. Study came out about 1.5 years ago in the Wall Street Journal that indicates when you meet somebody for the first time, you decide what you think of that person within the first 4 to 8 seconds. Now think. You haven't had time to meet that person. You haven't had time to really hear what they have to say or get to know them. But we're pulled in so many directions now. We're so distracted. We have so many options in our culture. Our attention span is so short that we've just defaulted. We've changed our behavior to decide what we think before we even know what we're deciding about.
Amen.
But the fact is, we live in an 8-second world. That's the world we live in. Everything you do as a communicator, you need to filter through that fact. I tell pastors all the time, I'm glad your sermon's anointed. I'm glad your worship and your music is fantastic. But in an 8-second world, what does the lobby look like? Who's the first person a new visitor meets when they walk in the door? Is your parking a nightmare? Because trust me, they're starting to make their decision way back there. I work with a church in Dallas that has pinpointed 7 distinct places where they can interact with a new visitor before they ever get to their pew. They're so intentional about living in an 8-second world. So whatever you do, if you're writing an article, if you're making a video, think about 8 seconds. How do we capture their attention? Attention is the new currency. It's the most important thing you can do because we just live in a world where people have defaulted to making decisions in 8 seconds. So never forget that. As a communicator, that is your job. The web, in 8 seconds, can they get to where they want to go on your website? Think about it. It impacts every single thing you. That's why they say now, when you write a book, that first paragraph is the most important paragraph in your entire book. That's why cover is so incredibly important. You walk into Barnes & Noble, and there's 10,000 book covers there screaming at you. The one you pick is the one you're going to be attracted to right away. Title, I'm telling you something, titles are so incredibly important. Names you give to projects or outreaches. One of the biggest things we do with our company is rename churches and ministries. You can't believe some of the horrible church names out there. Horrible church names. And we go in and help them come up with a new name because today, in an 8-second world, the name is all people will give you. That's the only time they'll give you. And by the way, let me just say, I think I talked about this the last time I was here, your URL matters. Your website address matters. There's no punctuation. There's no space. So make sure it looks like what you think it looks like out of context. I think I showed you the last time, but there's a graphic design firm in LA that specializes in getting logos designed really quick. It's called the Speed of Art. It's great. But their website is speedofart.com, which is also speedofart.com. If you look at it the right way, there's a website that fixes your computer. They hook you up with an expert called Experts Exchange, which is great, but expertsexchange.com is also expertsexchange.com.
Well,
so just make sure when you launch a new initiative or a new program, check that website out of context because you don't want to be the Experts Exchange ministry. Very important. All right? Number seven. Reach the artists and you reach the world. Let me tell you something. Find the artists in your community and make an effort to reach out to them. I'm telling you, churches that are filled with creative artists grow quicker simply because creative artists go out and retell the story through their work. When you get an artist excited about God, when you get an artist excited about your church, let me tell you, there are so many ways they can go out and tell that story. Always think about appealing to the artistic crowd in your community. It can be a powerful, powerful tool for growing your church because their whole life is about telling stories through art, through books, through film, through video, whatever. Just get excited, get artists excited about your church. Let me tell you something, you will blow up. Number 8. Nah, I'll skip that one. And then actually number 8 is, and Charles is going to talk about this tomorrow, I think, is live streaming matters. Let me just tell you something quick from my perspective, because he can tell you how to do it better. But I'm just going to say, I never in a million years thought live streaming would be as important as it is today. We have, I told Charles this morning that we have 3 churches that we work with that make as much as 1/3 of their total financial income just from their live stream audience. Think about that. 1/3 of your total income for the live stream audience. I had a pastor of a church in South Carolina call me a few months ago. 6,000 members. He told me that Sunday his live stream audience gave more than his 6,000 member congregation gave. And we've done some things with the live stream with these guys. When we work with them, we help them tweak it so they feel like it's a campus experience, not just watching some live service online. For instance, during the music or during the worship, we'll have the pastor go off to the side and look at the camera and say, "Hey, I'm Pastor Phil Cooke. Welcome to the service today. We're going to be talking about forgiveness and blah blah blah. You're welcome, like you would if it was a multi-site campus experience." Then during the offering, there's nothing more boring in the world than watching a church take an offering. So we roll a video about how they can give and how they can be a part of it. Have a little fun with it in the process. Little things like that make them feel like, whoa, I'm a part of this congregation, and I should give as a result. So I'll tell you, listen to what Charles has to say, because live streaming is powerful. It really, really does matter. And the final thing I'll say about live streaming, by the way, is I spoke at a pastor's conference in Oklahoma City a few weeks ago, and I met a guy who preaches to 700 people in his congregation. He has 10,000 that watch him every week on his live stream. How powerful is that? How powerful is that? So it's just really, really important. And by the way, going back to the short video thing, I may have mentioned this last time. We have a thing in Hollywood called Q scores. Q scores are an algorithm for celebrities. In other words, before I pay Matt Damon $30 million or Denzel Washington $50 million to be in my movie, I want to make sure they have high Q scores. And it's an algorithm of box office receipts and press coverage and merchandise sales and a lot of stuff. But it eventually gives you the list of the top 20 most influential celebrities in Hollywood. Every year they print it, mostly for people to decide, is this star worth it? Is that star worth it? Last year they did it. And for the first time in history, the top 7 most influential celebrities in Hollywood were YouTube stars. All 7. YouTube. These are guys that make 5-minute shows in their parents' basement or in a spare bedroom. And they're more influential. The number 8 person on the list was Taylor Swift. And then Bruno Mars. And then guess what? 3 more YouTube stars. And then some more traditional celebrities down there. It's just amazing the power of 5-minute videos. It's just blowing up out there. So take that seriously. What could that mean for the gospel? What could that mean to promote your church? People like to share that stuff. That's incredibly important. So any questions about that stuff? And by the way, any questions about what we talked about this morning? Maybe over lunch you had time to get it seething mad and upset. What could we talk about? Yes, sir?
Yes, you said, dealing with, I think it was number 6 or 5, dealing with books, you were saying it helps with your credibility.
Yeah.
Hold on, wait a second.
The question was, I mentioned that books help a pastor's credibility. Would I talk a little bit more about that? Here's the thing. Every pastor in America has got CDs and tapes and, as Charles said, cassettes from the old days, and sermons piled up on hard drives. But a book is something you can share with people. And by the way, a book has an enormous impact on press coverage. When I do a book, the last book I did, I was on the Today Show. I could get interviewed on 100 radio stations. In between my books, I couldn't get an interview if I held a gun to people's heads. Nobody wants to interview Phil until he has a book ready, because it gives them something to talk about. Books are a powerful tool for getting your pastor out there in the community, getting interviewed on local radio, on local television. So it doesn't have to be, a life-changing book. Just getting something down is a great way to start. And it can really, and plus, he's got something to say when he goes to a conference to speak. Set up a book table, do a sign. I spoke at a night before last. I was in Mobile, Alabama. I told someone earlier that they all thought I was a local guy because I kept saying I was from LA. They thought lower Alabama, right? So apparently that lower Alabama thing really worked. But I spoke to 500 people, and it was a medical mission outreach. And I probably signed 100 books afterwards. People hear you speak, they get excited about your message, they'd love to buy your book. So I probably sold 100 books afterwards. So that's another way for your pastor to get known, get the message out there. A book can go places he could never go. Any other questions?
I had a question about,
Yes, ma'am.
you talked about the first 8 seconds, 48 seconds of a video, or how important is the thumbnail? The thumbnail?
The picture?
The picture that.
Super important. Super. It's like the cover of a book. The thumbnail on YouTube or wherever it's posted is incredibly important. Simply because you look at those things and you decide to watch something based on. That's why most secular, worldly people will put a girl in a bikini or something, even though she's not in the video at all. They'll put some thumbnail on there just to attract people. We just live in a world where attention is the new currency. If you can't, I don't care how great your message is. If you can't capture their attention, we failed. We have failed. And that's kind of our job as communicators. It's our job to get people's attention. So obviously you don't want to do anything immoral or not biblical, but as far as you can go, get people's attention. Capture it. It's very important because you're basically setting them up with a life-changing message. We need to make that happen. I think that's really, really critical. Book covers are the same way. Anything you do, think of design as a way of capturing an audience, because that's what its purpose really is. Anything else? Your last chance to hit me. Come on. I'm going to leave here shortly.
Yeah, I have another one then.
Okay.
You talked about having authored, what, seven or eight books?
Yeah.
Can you share a little bit about your process from writing to getting published?
Yeah. I write, don't tell my publishers, but I would write for free if I had to, because I just write. It's just always come. But what's unique about what I do is I wait till the absolute last minute. Absolute last minute. And when I do it, the idea churns around, I read a lot, I'm thinking about it a lot, it's flowing around in there, and at some point the dam breaks. And when the dam breaks, I write I like crazy. I never struggle with writer's block because writer's block means you started too soon. If you're struggling to come up with an idea, you started way too soon. Hold it back. Hold it back. Hold it back. Read. Be challenged. Listen to speakers. Whatever it is, what subject you're writing on, get as much intake as you possibly can. And when your brain can't hold it anymore, it'll bust loose. And let me tell you, it comes pretty easy. So and my first draft, by the way, I don't care what it looks like. Grammar mistakes, punctuation, I just get it down. I think it was Flannery O'Connor, the novelist, who said, I don't know what I'm thinking until I see what I say.
Amen.
And that's true with me. I have to get it down to really see what I want to do. And then I go back and I revise it. And I'm not a writer, I'm a rewriter. And so I revise it, and get it to where I want it. And then I go out and pitch it to a publisher. I'm not sure I'll ever work with a traditional publisher again. I had a really terrible experience with a book recently and with a publisher. And they just, they're looking for somebody that is going to bring 1 million Twitter followers or Facebook followers to the table. They want you to do all the marketing for it. So why am I getting a $1.25 royalty from a traditional publisher if I'm doing all the work? I'd rather do it myself and get $10 royalty per book. Plus, they get all the rights. Traditional publisher keeps the ebook rights, the TV rights, the film rights, the video rights, the audiobook rights. Why am I doing that for a lousy $1.25 a book when I can just do it myself? And I may have to pay for more of it up front, but if you're making $10 a book, you get that back pretty quick. It doesn't take many sales to get your money back. So I'm changing the way I think about publishing because that world is changing. Traditional publishers are like Blockbuster stores in a Netflix world. It just doesn't work anymore. By the way, did you know there's one Blockbuster store in America? It's in New Jersey. And they have the most awesome Twitter feed ever. They really run with it. He posted the other day, you know what? Blockbuster, we're for when you don't feel like downloading something, you don't feel like getting in the mail, you just feel like getting in your car and driving across town and picking out a movie. That's awesome. It's brilliant. So they're taking advantage of the fact that they're old technology. One store left. But so publishing, writing, I think is really, really critical. And here's the thing. If you're a producer, if you want to be a producer or a media director or a communications director, even if you never want to be a writer, learn to recognize good writing. I tell my filmmaking students in Hollywood, you're going to be a director or a producer and spend a year working on a film, but you can't read the screenplay and decide if it's good or not. You may not ever want to write, fine, but understand what good writing is. Understand how to see it on the page, because that's going to help you decide if I make this project happen or not. Do I want to work on this video? Do I want to turn this into a magazine or a book or whatever? Do I want to help this pastor with this? Understand that. That's very, very important. Yes, sir.
Going to websites. Let's get back to websites.
Yeah.
Is it your, and you may have mentioned this, I'm just listening. Is it your recommendation to put short form rather than long form on the website in terms of readability content? Reading content. Because I have seen some websites where the title of the article is really attractive. You start reading it, then you find that, read more. There's a hyperlink, and it takes you to a document of 12 pages.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that for websites, especially churches, short form versus long form?
The pastor's 4-page bio, get rid of it. Lose it, lose it, lose it. Trust me, nobody's reading it. Nobody's reading it. Cut it down to a half a page. Cut it down to a half a page. It may kill him. You may have to have a little come to Jesus moment with him, but I can guarantee you nobody's reading that bio. The minute it goes over a half a page, nobody cares. Part of being a great communications person is being able to tell the story quickly. Get to the point. You know what? Don't tell me how deep the water is, just bring in the boat. Don't tell me about your labor pains, just show me the baby. I want to get right to the point. I don't want to dilly-dally. That's the way the web world works. People, if they want to read a book, they'll go get a book. But keep your description of the new outreach you're doing, your description of the Christmas program, your description of everything. If you keep it under a paragraph, you'll get readers. If it goes much longer than that, you are dead in the water. They're just not going to read it. They're going to move on. So what's the point of even doing it if they're not going to read it? So I just think we live in, and here's the thing. We could sit here and argue for hours about whether that's good or bad. I lament that we don't have a reading society like we used to. But the truth is, who cares? We've got to act. We've got to do something to get the gospel out there. So I'm going to work with what I got. And that's what we've got. We've got a culture of people that don't read. So that's why videos need to be short. If you can't engage a person in the first 30 seconds of your video, you're going to lose them. I mean, you can take it to 4 minutes if you want, maybe even 5 if it's important. But you've got to engage them quickly, and otherwise you will lose them completely. I think that's that's a great question. Keep it short. Your website is not meant to be the directory of all things about your church. Your website is to get, if I may be ugly, your website is to get butts in the seat.
Well,
your website is to grow that church, and it's to attract visitors and help that church grow and expand. If you can do that, you've been successful with your website. Yes, ma'am. Hold that brilliant thought. We're going to get it on camera.
Yes, sir.
With this 4 to 6 second mindset that we have,
Yes, ma'am.
once you get them into the church, don't you think that there should be a shorter sermon?
Yes, Lord. It's time for me to leave. How long does your pastor typically preach?
An hour.
Oh, that's a little much. Look, let me tell you something I see happening out there. Let me tell you something happening out there. And I'm going to, at the risk of my own life, I'm going to say this. Fortunately, I'm not with a lot of pastors. Some pastors here, but not a lot. Here's what I see out there. Younger people are starting to engage more. And I'll tell you why. If you've got something that I see, my feeling is the day of pastor as motivational speaker is over.
Amen.
What I'm seeing a lot is younger people really want to engage. And I'm seeing a rise in verse-by-verse Bible teachers. I've got a guy in North Carolina, preaches verse-by-verse, 4,000 or 5,000 members. There's a guy in Hollywood, Tim Chaddock had a church in Hollywood. He had probably 2,000 20-somethings in this church. They met at Roosevelt High School in Hollywood. 2,000 20-somethings. When I would go to the church, I'm the oldest guy there. And he will preach for an hour and a half. And you know what he does that's cool? The worship singers, silhouette. He said, you know what? Who they are is not important. It's about who we're worshiping, who we're singing to. That's what's important. And he puts them all in silhouette. But he'll preach for 90 minutes. And 20-somethings line up to get in the building. So here's the thing. A lot of it depends on the power of the preacher. I mean, if you're a great speaker, if you can captivate people, then I'm not worried about it so much. But I do worry about most preachers who preach way too long. One of my favorite quotes is either Mark Twain or President Woodrow Wilson said, somebody asked him if he'd come and speak at their event. He said, if you want me to speak for 10 minutes, it'll take me 2 weeks to prepare. If you want me to speak for an hour, fine, I can do it right now. The whole point was, speaking short is a discipline. It takes time. It's hard work.
Yes.
Guys that just go up there and spew for an hour and a half, that's not impressive to me. I want to know the guy that can speak in 20 or 30 minutes and change people's lives. So I don't put a specific time limit. I'm more about, and I tell this to pastors all the time. I write about it on my blog a lot. It's more about content. How good are you at the delivery? I'm really anti, I'm going to get ugly here. I'm anti-pastors that look at their notes all the time. You know what? If you're going to do that, just print it out and give it to me and I'll read it. Why should I go sit there and watch you read something? I'll just read it myself. I want to see somebody who's captivated by that message. Move around. Be interesting. And you wouldn't go to Starbucks with a buddy and sit there and stare at your coffee cup while you talk to him. So why do you do that in your congregation? Engage people. Be interesting to talk to. It's interesting that some of Jesus' most powerful moments weren't preaching or teaching. They were at a wedding, or they were in a fishing boat. Or they were in weird places. We should be able to engage people in a physical way. So I just think, that's why I speak to so many pastors' conferences. I'm always really trying to get them to understand that connecting with an audience, and there's a lot of things involved with that. And your content is certainly important, but it's also how you move, where you look, and making eye contact with people. I wrote a blog post yesterday. It's the second post on my blog at philcooke.com about if you're launching a new speaking career, here's 5 things you need to remember. Some of those every pastor needs to go over and look at because they're very, very important. Okay? So I don't know if I didn't really answer your question, but there's not really not a definitive answer to that. But I think some people can go an hour or even an hour and a half to captivate people. But we do live in a distracted culture today, and I think I would err on the side of being short, powerful, and to the point. And I'm telling you, I know plenty of pastors who can preach a message in 20 to 30 minutes that'll blow you away. So you can't tell me I need an hour to get the message out there. You just can't tell me that.
Yes.
I don't remember Jesus. I don't remember a situation in the New Testament where Jesus or Paul preached for an hour. They got to the point pretty quick, and it transformed people. And by the way, while I'm on this kick, remember how many times in the Bible it said Jesus astonished people. How many people listen to pastors today and are astonished? Not many. Not many. I think we need to get back to the day when our messages are so powerful, so compelling, that people are astonished by what we say. Whew, if we could do that, we could change this culture. Yes, sir.
Going back to short videos.
Yes, sir.
Is there a structure in putting together a short video? How would you structure it, or what would you recommend in terms of structuring it a certain way so that making sure that you got all the points covered?
Great question. Every story is a little different, so I'm not slave to structure, but I do think in the vast majority of videos, the ones that work the best, if we had time, I'd show you a few, but we don't. But let me just say this. I always start out with a problem. Always start out with a problem. You capture people's attention by showing the problem. And just let me say, be as brutal as you want to be. I think you're never going to convince people about how far Jesus can take them unless you show people how far down they were to begin with. If we're not willing to get dirty with people and show just how bad his life was when he was a drunk, when he was abused, when he was an abuser, when he was standing outside the liquor store offering to do anything to get a bottle of liquor. You got to show that stuff. Tell the story. Don't hold back. Don't hold back. Tell the story. But start with the problem. Then you show the encounter that he had that started to change him. And then you show what happened after the encounter, what Jesus did. It's really a three-act structure. The problem is Act 1. The encounter, the challenge, if you will. The encounter is Act 2. You know, the guy stumbled into a church service, or he met a guy at the bus station who shared Christ with him, or he did this, or he did that. And one of the great stories that we did for the Salvation Army recently was about an outlaw biker, hardcore outlaw biker, who killed people. And he was in North Dakota, and he went to visit his mom, who was really, really ill and super poor, and she needed a gallon of milk. And he rode his bike into town. I mean, this guy, tattoos everywhere, hardcore, beats up anybody at the drop of a hat. He drove into town to get her a carton of milk, and he happened to walk by a Salvation Army place, and a person just stepped out and started talking to him. And the guy said, "What are you doing?" He said, I came to get my mom a gallon of milk. And he said, "Well, here, let me get it for you." He said, "Well, what do I owe you?" He said, "We're the Salvation Army. That's what we do. You just take it. We're thrilled to have it." And that started a connection with the Salvation Army for him. Ends up today, he's a Salvation Army officer in Wyoming, helping people, and his specialty is working with little kids. And but we started out we showed how bad this dude's life was. And we showed the encounter, and now you show him working with kids. I'm telling you, it'll break your heart every time you see it. So go with that. And just, the structure isn't important though, it's really showing the bad stuff. You know, I'm not saying don't get ugly or don't get sexual or overly violent, don't get gratuitous, but however, we really want to see, to make somebody realize how far Jesus took them, you got to show how far they were. Am I going over time? I don't want to. Any last question? Yes, sir.
You kind of already answered my question, but my question was, as far as the promotion and doing the social media and the website,
right?
You want to make sure that you renew content on the website. You want to make sure that your social media is relevant and timely. Do you have a suggestion for how often to update the website and how often to do the social media, like promotion for an event that's coming up?
Yeah, good question. I just changed my company site because we changed our company name from Cooke Pictures to Cooke Media Group. We rebranded ourselves because in the old days we were primarily a production company, and we took the name a lot of studios used to use, Pictures. So we were Cooke Pictures for 20-some years, and we just had this year to switch over to Cooke Media Group because we consult with churches, we do a lot of web stuff, growth strategies, a lot of different things, along with production. So we went through this whole rebranding process, and because we do that with churches and ministries, we thought we better not screw this up. We need to show people how good this works. And it was a really interesting experience to do it ourselves on us. What we discovered is, as you know, as all of you probably know already, Google, ranks you in the search results based on change. So there's tags, of course, there's categories and tags and things like that. However, if your website's just sitting there and nothing new is happening, it's not going to come up very high in the search results. The robots are out there, searching, and when you see change, they research. Every time something changes on your website, it's re-indexed. And the more re-indexing that's going on, the higher your site's going to come up in a search result. So, the more change you can have. That's why my blog, I pretty much own the first page. You search for Phil Cooke, I own the first page pretty much. Because of my blog, I'm posting almost every day. So it's constantly changing, being updated, and going up. So number one, if you've got something on your church site that you could possibly update on a regular basis, do it. That's why I like attaching a blog to your website, or just church updates and church news. Those things that will make it constantly be updated and change, it'll really help you go up in the search results. As far as a refresh of your whole site, I'd probably do that about once every year. Maybe 2 years at the most. You can go 2 years at the most. But in a refresh, by the way, a brand refresh isn't starting from scratch necessarily. It's really just giving it a new lease on life. My blog is, in about a month, you're going to see a refresh of my blog. The structure is going to change a little bit. The branding is not changing a lot, but it's going to be a whole new way to look at it. It's going to show more feature stories. It's gonna show more stories, it's gonna show more stuff like that. So that's what a brand refresh is. It's kind of a shot in the arm to give you something new. You don't have to start from scratch and start all over again. As far as social media is concerned, man, you can hardly overpost. Now, I say you can hardly overpost. You can overpost if you're saying the same thing over and over and over again. That'll drive people crazy. But if you're constantly talking about new stuff or talking about the same thing in a new way, you know, looking at it from a different direction, you can talk about that kind of stuff, and it really, really does make a difference. And you can post 7, 8, 10 times a day if you want. I generally end up posting 4 or 5 times a day. This is our company site. This is our company site. We completely redid that about 2 months ago, maybe 3 months ago, and we wanted to use the videos to show a little bit of all the different stuff that we do, and what we call above the fold, which even on a laptop, we want to see, while we're using video to drive it, because we do so much video, we still want to see all the key things above the fold so they don't have to scroll up. Can you scroll up on that thing for a second? But when you do scroll up, you get hold right there. You get the single most important thing about what we do. Focusing your message in today's distracted world. That's what we help churches, ministries, nonprofits do. And so the single biggest thing, if I was a church, that's the reason I want people to come, because that's what we do. So whatever it is you do that's amazing, and of course, even explaining that, we got a paragraph or less. That's now that I look at it, that's probably too much. I might want to cut that back when I get home. And then we immediately talk about how we can help, because we're looking for clients. And we have our 3 key areas: strategy, broadcast and video production, and coaching. And of course, it's very, very picture and video driven. We just live in a world today where they don't care about your text, they care about your pictures. And then if you scroll up, we have one of our taglines, our mission is to accelerate yours. And then we have 3 featured projects. We rotate these just to let people, you can click on one of those, click on the Salvation Army there. And then if you click on it and click on read more there, you can, you can just click on it there. And it'll actually go to a much bigger explanation, including a video of what we created for the Salvation Army. So it's just easy and simple to get to everywhere you need to go. Everywhere you need to go. So if you can do that with your church or your ministry or outreach, that'll make a huge difference. All right, I probably need to go because you guys have other things to do this afternoon. So, hey, I love what you do. You are my people. Thank you for letting me come. There's nothing that makes me happier than talking to guys like you. And what you do matters. What you do matters, so go out there and change the world. Woohoo! And copyright is not your right to copy. Just make sure you get that.
All right, thank you once again. I'll get my phone because I gotta get mine. All right, we got a lot of notes from that session, right? Pointers. Touched on a little bit of everything in terms of what we do. All right, let's give Phil Cooke another round of applause. Wonderful information. Since we stole a little bit of your break,